Hey guys, welcome to CheatSheetPros.com. Today is Monday, April 18th, and as we start to get some more data in the MLB cheat sheet, we're going to have a little bit more content rolling out. Typically, Mondays and Tuesdays are extremely busy for me at work, so usually Wednesday through Saturday is when I'm going to look at posting most of the content, but I had a break here before lunch and was flipping through the sheet and found a couple of stacks that I like and a couple of pitchers that I think you should use tonight, so I wanted to go over them with you. So first, let's take a look at 4 different pitchers that are popping up on our sheet tonight, and then we'll look at the 2 stacks I like. One is the chalky, but it's cheap, and then the other one, I don't think will be as high owned. So I'm going to try to make this video short and sweet. So we're going to go ahead and pull up the MLB cheat sheet. We have our daily stacks tab, which we are going to focus on here in a minute. We have our pitchers, our hitters, our stack tab for the teams, and our tiers tab. So the first thing I do is I go down here to this stacker tab, and I look at the teams. This is sorted by projected runs by Vegas, and so I sorted high to low. These early games, the 10-10, the showdown slate at 5-10, you can throw them out. Since there's only 2 games, I'm going to leave them in here. So typically what I do is I start at the top and I work my way down. You can see Philadelphia is projected at 6.1, but the cost per player 2 to 6 is about 5,400, which is astronomical. So that's going to be chalky, number 1, and 2, it is really expensive, so I'm going to stay away from that one. Then when we come down here to Houston, they're in a dome going up against Lorenzen. He had a really good first start, so I'm going to fade that one. We'll take a look at him. He's one of the pitchers I do like for GPP. Colorado is the first stack that I do like. You can see they have a number 8 power ranking over the last 2 weeks, and they're averaging 5.1 runs per game and hitting 280 as a team, and I love their price point. You can get it for around 4,040 to 4,160, so anything that's 4 to 44, we really like that. So based on the price and projected value of Vegas, that gives us 105% value, so we really like that. It is going up against Nola, but this is what I love right here, is this BVP. So it's only 48 total at-bats, so take it with a grain of salt, but once I see 50 to 80 at-bats, I start looking at it. But out of 48 at-bats, the team right now, the projected starting lineup is batting .354. They do have a 29% K rate, which is pretty high, but they are batting .354, and then Nola did struggle in his first 2 starts, so that's something we can take a look at. And let me pull up Nola and look at it. So this is Fantasy Cruncher in the background. I bounce between Cruncher, RotoWire, Fantasy Alarm just to look at game logs and data. I just happened to have Fantasy Cruncher open when I was doing the video, so you can see Nola's got 2 starts this year. He started on the 8th and the 13th. And what I notice here is he's allowed 7 earned runs and 9.1 innings. So he's struggling to start the year. He faced Oakland, gave up 4 runs. He did have 7 Ks, so that's good, and didn't walk anyone. And then he went up against the Mets, who are actually playing really good this year. Only lasted 3.1 innings, gave up 3 runs, and walked 3, and hit 2 batters. And he hit 1 batter in the first game, so he's struggling with control. And he did have 5 Ks, so his strikeout upside is there, but he's someone that I like to go ahead and stack tonight, especially, I believe that game is in Coors. Let me look here. Okay, no, it looks like it's in Philadelphia. So, Colorado, I think, could be pretty sneaky. Some people might stay away from it because they see the Nola. It is the 3rd highest projected game, or tied for the 2nd highest in Vegas projections, so take that for as what you will. And then scrolling down through some of these other games, this is a showdown slate when you see these massive salaries. So I'm not playing the showdown. We're going to skip over that. And we are going to go down here. Oakland is the next one that jumps out at me. So typically I'm looking for green and yellow teams. You can get into this blue, but they're a little bit tougher and you need to dig in a little more. So the very bottom team in yellow is 4.3 runs, and that is the Oakland A's, who are 18th in our power ranking. They have a WRC plus of 100, so they're about an average team. They are putting up 5.3 runs per game over the last 2 weeks, which is good. And I like the weather. Here you can see the wind is blowing out at 11 miles an hour, and they're going up against Spencer Watkins, who is god-awful. So he does not have a lot of stats this year, but you can see last year he had an ERA over 8, and then the bullpen, let me make sure you can see this on your screen behind him, is 29th. So the bullpen xFIP this year is 4.76, and the bullpen's given up a 260 average. So I really like Oakland for a GPP stack tonight. So I'm going to come over here and take a look at, well, first let's look at Watkins and see what he did in the first. Before data pulls in the sheet, they need a minimum innings. So you can see here his first start, he only lasted 3 innings, so he hadn't got the minimum at 6 or 7 innings before the data pulls. But we're starting to get some 2022 data in. So he went up against Milwaukee. He had 3 innings. He gave up 1 run. He walked 2, and he struck out 1. So not terrible, but not great by any means. So I'm going to come over here to the Daily Stacks tab, and this is where I get the majority of my data. And I'm going to leave it blown up a little bit so you can kind of see, and then I'll scroll over as needed. So looking at these 2 games, I typically flip down all of these and take a look at it. So Philadelphia, Colorado's won, and I apologize, this says Colorado home. So when I was looking at the stack tab, this must be where the home team is, or where the team is over here is listed here. So not this pitcher. This is just the facing pitcher. So that was my bad. I'm getting rolling into this 2022 season. So you can see here they have Philly at 6.1, so they'll be pretty chalky. They have Colorado at 4.9, which typically Coors games are pretty chalky. We only have them at 4.2, so take that with a grain of salt. It's limited data this year. But when we go down here and we look at Aaron Nola, and I just realized that got cut off on your screen. I like over here this BVP data, 17 for 48, batting 354. He has a good K rate at 29%, but they're hitting 354 off of him. And you can see the at-bats are sporadic, so take that with a grain of salt. Kind of look across the board, make sure the starting lineup is the same. Nola this year did pretty decent in his first start. He has an ERA of 6.75, but his xFIP shows a 3.48 and has a nice K9 ratio of 11.6, but this is in Coors, and we've seen pitchers struggle in Coors, so I like taking a shot on Colorado here. What really jumps out is they're not that expensive. Typically what you're going to see, like over here, you can see the average cost of these hitters for the top graded stack and the top hitter stack, or this is the hot hitter stack. You know, in the 5s, this is red. This is very expensive. It is extremely hard to build a lineup. It's hard to get good pitching with stuff this strong, but you come over here and you can get the Colorado side for 4K, 41, 42. I mean, that's phenomenal. Now, some of them have been struggling, but you can put together some good players here. Like we have Chris Bryant, who's averaging 8.2 fantasy points per game. He's only $4,200. You've got CJ Crone here, who's averaging 12.6, has a massive ceiling of 30 at 4,400, and he's even 2 for 3 off Nola. And then you come down here, you got Connor Joe, who has the second highest grade of all of the hitters at 102, averaging 11.9, and he's only 4,000. I mean, you can build a good lineup with these Colorado hitters, so that's one that I do want to take a look at, especially for cash. So let's go ahead and take a look at Oakland. This is the other one that I want to take a look at. So flipping down here, and if you're new to the sheet, click inside this left team. This caret appears, click the drop down, and you can scroll through all of the games and take a look at it. So Baltimore, Oakland's the other game I want to look at. And you can see here, Baltimore projected at 3.2. We got them at 3.1, so that's pretty normal, but this should pop out to you. Vegas has Oakland at 4.3. We got them at 5.2, and they're 4th in our last 10 power rankings, so that kind of jumps out at me. I want to take a look at something like that. And then taking a look here, let me make sure I get you scrolled over. We have Spencer Watkins. So Spencer Watkins, you can see we don't have enough for the 2022 stats, but looking at the 2021 stats, they were awful. He had 54.2 innings, so he had a large amount of innings that we can kind of take a look at. He had an ERA of 8.07, an xFIP of 5.6. He gave up a 4.05 WOBA. He had a very low K9 rate at 5.8, and these should be alarming. His WHIP was 1.7. That is astronomical. A typical MLB pitcher should have a WHIP around 1.1, 1.5, 1.2, anything kind of in that range. The elite pitchers will get down in the low 1.0 numbers to 0.95. In that range, the pitchers that are struggling that you should worry about are like 1.25, 1.3 and higher. 1.7 is just absurd. And then you can see the batting average here. He gave up a 322 last year. And what I like about this, when you look at these two stats, the WHIP and the average, the 1.7 and 322 is alarming. But then if you look at the home road splits, he had 25 and 29 innings, so not a ton, but a decent amount. And you can see on the road, he really struggled with a 1.96 WHIP and his batting average allowed went from 260 at home to 366 on the road. So we like an Oakland stack. The other thing I love is Oakland is dirt cheap. Look at this. You can get in here you can get the top grade stack for $36.40 per hitter, which is microscopic. And then you can get the hot hitter stack, so the 5 hot hitters in this projected lineup. Now you can tell here it's not a confirmed lineup yet, but it's going to be the 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7 with Kemp, Lowry, Murphy, Brown, and Andrus. And the average per hitter is $37.60. 4 of those guys are well below 4,000. Only Sean Murphy is 4,800, so you could even get this cheaper if you wanted to. Obviously no BVP data here, and let's take a look at Watkins, and I think we did. Yeah, he just had the 1-3 innings that he shot the first time. But even if Watkins only throws a couple of innings and he does decent, the bullpen is atrocious. They're 29th right now this year. They have an xFIP of 4.76, a WHIP of 1.46. For a bullpen, that is terrible. And like we said before, they're giving up a 260 average. So I would take a look at Colorado tonight. I would stack them, probably more for cash. GPP, I really like the Oakland stack. They're only projected at 4.3. We got them at 5.2, so I think that could be a sneaky win. And it's dirt cheap, so you can load up some of these pitchers. Now let's flip over and take a look at pitching. So now we're going to go over here to the pitchers tab. Now this is going to have some of the limited data on it, so I'm going to blow it up a little bit. The algo's not going to fill, so what I did on this sheet is I ran the 2022 numbers. So the sheet I posted right now shows 2021 stats in the 2022 column, just so some data fills out. But I pulled because I wanted to see if some pitchers were coming through. And some of the pitchers that I like, let me sort this by salary. So just looking at the salary, of course, we have Clayton Kershaw up top. We like him. He's got a semi-tough matchup, but he's been doing really well. The wind is blowing out. He's 10-3, the most expensive pitcher, but he's pretty solid. We're going to take a look at him. Nola, we're going to fade. I don't want any part of him in Colorado and his 2 struggling starts. Louis Garcia didn't jump out. Tyler Mcgill, I do like him. He's priced at 9,300. He's the 4th highest pitcher, but he's got a decent rate. You can see here the opponent strikeout rate is 23.6. and 24.3 where they're at currently. So, and he had a good first start. We're going to take a look at him. Sean Manaea is another one that I really liked. He's 9,100. He's up there. So we're going to need some cheap hitters out of Oakland to get some of these good pitchers in here. Matchup is so-so. That's about average, 23.5%. And then we come down here, and I really like Shane Mcclanahan. I think he could be sneaky. He hasn't had a big game yet this year. He's 8,100, so he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's the 8th pitcher on the board. But what I love here is his K9 rate we'll look at in a minute, but the opponent strikeout rate. So they're striking out at a 26.7% clip and 25.7 at their current location. And then we're going to come over here and take a look at his K9 rate. And so over here you can see his K9 rate is 11.7 versus left-handed hitters and 10.0 versus right-handed hitters. So he's strong to hitters on both sides of the plate. So Mcclanahan's one of my favorite GPP pitchers tonight. And then I'm going to come over here and just look at their game logs for this year and take a look at him. So Mcclanahan, we're going to look at him first. So he has 2 starts this year, so he's giving you a solid floor. He's got 19.5 and 17.5 points in each of the first 2 starts. He went 4.1, 4.2 innings, so it looks like they're getting him stretched out. But what I love here is he's got 4, 8, 9 innings, and he's got 15 strikeouts. So that is a massive K9 rate with upside. He has been walking a few batters, so that's a little alarming, but he's only $8,100. Tyler Mcgill, let's go ahead and take a look at him. He's had 2 starts in the 20s already, a 25.4 and a 24.2. He's gone 10.1 innings with 11 Ks and has not allowed an earned run or a walk this year. So that is fantastic for Mcgill. And then we are going to take a look at Kershaw. Let's go ahead and take a look at him. He's the most expensive player on the slate. Tough matchup against the Atlanta Braves, but his first start, he had 45.75 points. That is massive. That is 4.5x value his current salary. 7 innings, no hits, no runs, no walks, and 13 strikeouts. So if you want to piggyback on that, I think that's a solid option to go ahead and put him in here. They did pull him in this game, and there's a bunch of debate. He went 7 innings with a perfect game, but I'm not going to get into whether they should or should not have pulled him. But anyways, just take a look at him. Another guy, if you want to take a chance on, is Mickel Lorenzen. He has a tough matchup against Houston. You can see last year he struggled, threw a lot out of the bullpen, 1 and 2 innings. So this year, his first start, he had 28 DK points. And what jumps out at me is that's 4x value. So that's really good. He's priced at only $7,100. It is a tougher matchup, but he went 6 innings against Miami, threw a 2-hitter, 1 run, no walks, no hit batters, and had 7 strikeouts. So I really like taking a look at him as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at these pitchers on the sheets. Those are the ones that jump out at me that I do like the most. And let's go ahead and just start with Mcgill. So Mets, San Francisco. We're going to pull them up here. And there is Mets, San Francisco. So I want to look and make sure there's nothing jumping out at me. So we got Mcgill over here. And you can see this year he hit the minimum innings of 10.1, so he's in there. He's got an ERA of 0, xFIP of 1.89. He's allowing a 176 batting average, and his whip is 0.58. Solid. He has a good bullpen behind him that ranks 10th. So I do like taking a shot at Mcgill. He's priced really fair tonight. Say Lorenzen, LAA in Houston. We're going to take a look at him. Now, he has a tough matchup against Houston. They're ranked, well, I guess not as bad. They're only averaging 3.3 runs per game over the last 2 weeks, so it doesn't look terrible. But the hitters have been doing, oh, wrong side. And let me scroll over here. So the hitters have been doing decent. But the back half, the light up. I know Gurriel's been struggling. I've got him on one of my season-long teams. Goodrum's been struggling. Yeah, the bottom half of this lineup isn't anything to be scared about. So Lorenzen at 7,100 and 82 on FanDuel. I don't mind at all. He only has 6 innings this year, but a 1.5 ERA, 0.33 whip, and allowing a 100 batting average. Not a very good bullpen behind him, but he's cheap enough. I think we can take a shot on. Kershaw's the other one. Let's go ahead and take a look at him. He's going up against Atlanta. And so we can see, let me scroll back over here. So we've got a decent lineup for Atlanta. Bottom 4 hitters struggling, so that gives me some hope here. So the lefty, of course, he's going to have phenomenal stats. He was throwing a perfect game through 7 innings. Last year did good, had a 2.87 xFIP, 102 whip, and allowed a 224 batting average, and even lower 219.98 whip at home. So I think Kershaw today is pretty good, but he's the most expensive pitcher, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on him. And Mcclanahan is the other one. And let me pull him. So we got Cubs, Tampa. We'll take a look at him, and then we'll wrap up this video. So here we've got the Tampa Bay. So we got Mcclanahan over here. So solid bullpen behind him, the #1 in the MLB right now. His 9 innings, he has an ERA of 3, xFIP of 2.52. I love seeing a much lower xFIP than ERA. His K9 rate is 15 so far this year. So I want to look back at last year. Last year he had a 10.3 and on the road an 11.2. So he's solid. I want to make sure this isn't just a flash in the pan. Has a 1.22 whip, which is decent. It's about average, maybe slightly high, but he's allowing a 188 batting average in the first 9 innings this year. So he's doing really good. The lineup doesn't really scare me a whole lot. Going up against the Cubs, they're 13th in the last 10 power rankings. But you can see we got some struggling hitters over here. Got a few blues. Madrigal, he's also struggling. So those are the 4 pitchers I like tonight and the 2 stacks. So make sure you utilize this sheet. If you're not one of our premium members, our Facebook group, the link is in the description. I post these sheets in here for baseball and NBA on Thursdays so you can play with them. And typically one other day of the week, I'll randomly throw it in there. I think last Sunday or Easter Sunday, I threw it in there as well to let people kind of play with it, get used to it. What's new for this year is we have the last 12 game logs so you can see, you know, how the team is doing. And we've got the tutorial videos right here if you want to see more on fantasy and sports betting. So that's what I got today, guys. Good luck and go make some money.